welcome to another episode of Percolating Thoughts. So one thing that has been a large topic of conversation is the usage of AI in different capacities. Right now, even like legislators and educators and the government are getting involved in like AI usage. And while some people might be using it just to look up stupid questions or have AI kind of, I don't know, say your wedding planning and give you some table centerpiece ideas, call myself out there just a little bit. Um, there's there are some things to know about it that can create a large topic of discussion. Um,
Mhm.
I guess I'll go ahead and start the first question here. Belle, have you used AI, and what do you primarily use it for?
I have. And I treat it like Google. And that's why I sometimes have a hard time discerning its negative impacts because I'm like, if I Googled this, it would also give me the same answer. So I think I don't know, there's a discrepancy sometimes where I'm like, I could have Googled this, but sometimes AI, like, especially when you're doing research for like classes or personal projects, can really like narrow down sources, whereas Google can be like really overwhelming. So I found it really useful in that aspect of like, oh, I need an article about this, and the library has too many. Which ones are like actually what I'm looking for? So I definitely do. I've also definitely used it to like craft like text or emails for like people that I have boundaries with and need to make sure I'm not being like too friendly, or if I think my email feels too like not formal enough too.
Mhm. Right. I'd say I primarily use it for like, so in my current job position, I have to do a lot of like HTML coding. So sometimes like I'll put a code through chat or something and just make sure that it is correct for the right like content migration system that I'm using. Or, if I need to build or design things, I think especially with like wedding planning and stuff, I've used it to kind of like visualize different centerpieces and see what goes well, but it's not like the way I'm using it is not like in a malicious way. I
Yeah.
know here recently there's a lot of like legislation around using AI in a malicious way, whether it be like cheating on homework or creating sexually explicit images of certain people. I know Belle and I were talking before we kind of hopped on this call that Missouri legislators are creating what is called the Taylor Swift Act, which would allow businesses and entities, celebrities, what have you, to sue people who and AI essentially who create sexually explicit content of them, which I think is very responsible and very safe. But um, yeah, do you have any like reservations when it comes to like using AI?
Yeah, I think so. My scholarly inquiry to wrap up my master's is actually on the use of the ethics behind using AI in journalism, specifically when companies have been like laying off journalists and having the AI write the articles, and then we're not having anybody edit them. It's not humanistic, and then people are reading them and they're catching all these errors that would have been caught if a human was writing it, or at least a human edited it, because I think my thing is AI can be wrong and people keep treating it as if AI is sorry, AI is like the like perfect. And so I do have reservations when it comes to ethical journalism, but also like this idea that it's perfect, or also that like you're talking about sexual explicit images or using it for bad things, like how private is AI? Because things get leaked, and that's how you get to the point where it becomes harmful. And so that's something else too, where, kind of like look at who runs it. And that's why I'm always very iffy about what I run through chat or other AI, because technically Grammarly is now considered an AI. Um, and so I'm very particular because there is like we don't have enough laws around it right now, you know, and so it's like, okay, if this is something that I'm sending to somebody, I'm totally fine putting it through AI because it's going to be put out in the world anyways.
Right. And then I know there's like reservations. I have friends who don't use chat specifically because um, they support the Trump administration. And then also, like, anytime you use AI, we lose water or something like that, which, if I'm being completely honest with you, that is something that I need to educate myself a little bit more on because I'm not entirely sure how that works. Um, but still, like AI, like people, like to your point too, people are losing jobs because of AI. I think I remember reading an article early last year about how AI could like replace doctors. That is something that like scares me to the core because I don't know if it's just the fact that like having a human doctor is like really normal in the
Yeah.
world we're in, and humans make mistakes all the time. Um, but I don't think I would trust like an AI or a robot or a machine or whatever to perform maybe a life altering surgery on me or to diagnose me with something or whatever because I don't know. But um, yeah, I just don't think it's good for the economy if that's the case. And I know it might save companies money, but you're putting a lot of people out of jobs, and then we're turning more into a dystopia than we care to admit. So,
Yeah, I was at the dentist a few weeks ago and you know, they like show your x-rays as if it means literally anything to me. Um and she goes, "Yeah, we're starting to use this new AI program that highlights like, you know, where problem areas are because, you know, before I don't know, something." And I was like, "Didn't you like go to school for that? What do you mean like the AI is gonna tell you where the problem spots are?" But then like she was like, "Yeah, but sometimes it's not correct because those could be from like you've had braces, so your teeth could have like like some like obviously like grinding or something from during that time or all this stuff." And I was like, "So I'm sorry, why is the AI in the room with us? Because you should like when have you never not been able to like see it?" And she's like,
yeah,
"Yeah, it can be like preventative." And I was like, "Okay, but like still." Now you're
right.
just
No,
like, because I think in that aspect, it's like, okay, you went to school for this and now you're allowing this to take your job. And then it's like kind of speculative too.
right,
You're having to check the work then. Because then she's like, "But your teeth look fine." And I'm like, "So why did I look at this AI image of my teeth then?" Um,
right.
so yeah, I definitely have reservations about it entering like the medical field unless it's something that's like able to detect cancer or something that like we really need that kind of technology to be better than it is right now. But if it's for something literally like that you went to school for to check my teeth, like I don't think it's necessary.
No, seriously. Yeah, that's what scares me.
Yeah.
Um, in what ways do you see like AI getting bigger as we progress into, I guess, more of a AI realm?
Um, I don't know. I think not there's not enough answers about it. Um, and there's people who are creating their own versions of AI. I have friends who are doing like their master's work in bringing AI into like therapeutic situations for specifically women because we don't have enough therapists that listen to like women's issues and it's like very just women oriented.
Mhm.
So I can see it being beneficial in that case. I think obviously therapy is really expensive, and if you are able to have that access, I think that's great. But I think there also has to be some sort of uh response environmentally. because if it is creating, the damage that scientists are already seeing, um, I think there has to be a way to integrate it without taking so many resources. But also, I think it's that kind of comes down to an issue with billionaires who just like wipe out towns to like build these massive factories and uh,
Mhm.
things. I think it can be a beneficial tool, um, but there definitely have to be more regulations around how these companies run.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
no, you're good.
Um, I was gonna say I definitely agree because like it's so new we don't know like what can happen. And it's
Mhm.
odd because like you see it everywhere, you know you can use AI for something. Honestly, if I had to opt to um not use AI or something, I would do that more so over using AI. Like it's only if I really, really, really need it. Um,
No, that's something that's really bad. I think like it's like made the brain rot worse
yeah.
because I'm just like, well, why don't you just fucking ask AI? Like, I don't know, or like these things that I think we all were doing so good at, but now we have this easy access tool that I don't know, Grammarly was one thing, chat is a totally different entity, and I think that's also like leading to this. Like think the new generation, like that's gonna be rough if
Mhm.
it's not, calculated. But anyways, continue, sorry.
No, 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 you're good. And then, well, I mean, another point that I kind of feel like it's important to make is that, people like kids are using AI in like their education and everything, and then they're trying to get like college degrees, but then they had
Mhm.
AI assist them in getting the degrees. So whenever they get out into the real world, am I speaking to an expert or am I speaking to AI at that point, Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which kind of concerns me. But here in St. Joseph, there are some like professors at Missouri Western who are teaching students how to use AI responsibly. Like if they're, writing a paper or something, hey, could you clarify this or could you pull up some resources for this research or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just kind of it's it's a moral thing where it's like if you're a person and you're like, hey, I do see myself using AI or, you know,
Hmm.
I'm not going to cheat if I use AI. You
Yeah.
just it's a trust factor.
I think that's something too, because obviously I said my study is in AI and journalism and the ethics behind it.
Right.
Um, and I think that's something too, because talking to professors about it while kind of trying to get it all together,
Mhm.
like they are just so vehemently like against it that I'm like at some point you do have to work to make it a tool so that you're teaching your students how to use it, where to use it, when to use it, because if you don't, like just saying, oh, I block AI period, where I can
Right.
see that you have Grammarly extension downloaded to your computer, then that's a lie. And so I think it's kind of just like teaching how to use it as a tool, um, as well. But I also think, something else that's happening is AI is making misinformation easier to spread.
Oh,
There's
a
so
thousand.
many things I have to fact check before I send it on because I'm like, I have no idea if this image or this is AI anymore. And I feel like my parents now, like, on Facebook where they just like repost the dumbest things and then it turns out it's like this fake video. And so, kind of like, that is also an issue that's been happening too.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Um, other points or questions or whatever you're talking about.
I'm looking really quick.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Um,
as I'm using AI.
Okay.
Uh, okay, here, this can be our last
Okay.
um debatey question. Who do you think should be able to control AI? Governments, private companies, the public?
I think the public, I think it would be safer in the public's hands. I just don't think the government should be controlling AI per se. Same with like this, like businesses or corporations, because that's where it gets messy, murky, and um,
Hmm.
icky of all
Yeah.
verbs I could use. Like it could be like, or adjectives, I'm sorry. Um, but I don't think that that is the best option. Like in terms of those three options, I don't think government or corporations should be controlling AI because then at the end of the day, we're stuck in the same, never-ending cycle of government and corporations controls
Yeah.
people. You know, um, but yeah, what do you think?
I think I think there's certain private companies I'd be okay with because we've kind of seen this happen with like period tracking apps. I used European ones because those are not controlled by the government and aren't going to hopefully be used against me. So like there's some companies that I'm like, it can be. Obviously that it could be considered a bias because it's what I'm comfortable with. Um, but there might be people out there who disagree with my viewpoints and wouldn't be comfortable with that. Like I'd totally be okay with like a feminist women-owned company controlling an AI. I'd probably feel more comfortable considering that like OpenAI is probably controlled by a bunch of tech bros in Silicon Valley. Um, and so I think like publicly too. I think is also a good kind of way to go about it because we're the ones being affected, not the people who are higher up. Which is why all of these bills are starting to be passed because there are concerned citizens who are like, hey, this is happening through AI. This is not okay. How do we protect our children? How do we protect the elderly? So I think the public has just as much of a responsibility behind AI. Um, Especially when it comes to like creatives and supporting your creatives and holding companies accountable. I just saw like another post that people thought that it was made by an AI, but it was actually made by this really intelligent, like creative graphic designer who specializes in like 3D art. And so they were like, hey, thanks for asking, and then showed his entire process of making it. And so I think that's a really great way to respond when you're like, no, we are supporting these artists, and here is this great like idea and how it came to life. So I think it's up to us to hold, unfortunately, those that are higher up responsible as a public. Um, but it could be a private company too, dependent on, who it is. If it's Elon Musk, absolutely not.
Thank you for listening to our little chat about AI. I know there's a lot of opinions and ideas and stuff kind of swirling around the topic, and a whole bunch of different things that we kind of could have talked about, but just keeping it in the general conversation. But if you have any suggestions, comments, concerns, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have any questions about AI, or would like to kind of comment on any of the points we touched on, go ahead and comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Cheers!